Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course, stream for fun. Today, we're going over a game that my wife and I played, Split Fiction. We complete the entire game so we could do our review, and this is going to be spoiler-free, by the way. And while we really enjoyed it, and we'll talk about all of those aspects, I'm also going to mention things that we would have liked to have changed. But just to get it out of the way, the initial score that I would give would be 85 out of 100, and my wife would give an 8 out of 10, excuse me. And yeah, we both actually really enjoyed this. We've enjoyed HazeLight games for some time. We've played A Way Out, and we've played It Takes Two. If you haven't played those, they're awesome. They're a blast of a game. They are definitely smaller, though. They're not quite as long. I want to say we spent probably 20 hours for the gameplay itself, and we completed all of the little side stories as well. And things ultimately that stand out with the game is that it's the most cinematic yet that we've had from HazeLight. They do a great job of using the scenes, using the environment that you're in, giving us some really fun kind of like small cutscenes within the gameplay for things, or even during the gameplay. Some of those were actually really cool. This is, again, the longest game, so it's pretty long. Most people, I would say, would probably beat it in probably 15 hours, roughly. We just took a little longer and took time to just really have fun with it. This too also has the widest range of environments we've ever seen in a HazeLight game. So the environments, the characters, the abilities, also the game genres that you also get to play and engage with. It is really vast. Also too, it was really neat to see a lot of the nods that they gave different IPs. So like being able to jump into a hay bale, or being able to use a 1980s arcade, in a way, and not trying to give away too much. But it was just cool, some of the nods that they had. Or like a sword stuck in the ground at an angle. Some of you will know what that is. But yeah, it's just really awesome. And there were tons of these. I'd probably say around 25 different nods to different games and different genres. And it's just really cool to see that. There's also side stories. And some of those were actually my wife's and my favorite parts. And it's really nice. They do a good job of pacing the story, because there are definitely, like, the beginning part is actually pretty easy, but I'd say definitely the second half, they get into things that are more challenging. So if you're a really casual gamer, or your, spouse/partner is a really casual gamer, some parts of this game are really going to be pretty difficult for them. Like my wife is. I mean, she really likes Stardew Valley or Coral Island, or like My Time at Portia, those kind of games. And so to deal with some of the things which we'll get into were just really challenging. But hey, do the work to encourage and just keep helping them along. And like, we got through it, and she really enjoyed the game. So it was pretty awesome. The difficulty also gets pretty spiky to a degree. I'm not sure if that's exactly the right terminology, but the difficulty definitely does ratchet up at certain points, and maybe ratchets back down. We felt like it ratchets back down. And then the end game is, of course, like pretty much max difficulty. But again, if you're a casual gamer and you don't really play a lot of different types of video games, the end game I don't think will be the most difficult, as you will already had practice with other bosses. But it's going to be the types of game genres that you haven't played yet that I think will be the most challenging part. The story and the characters. They did a really good job with this. So the characters start two-dimensional. They kind of start the story. And throughout the story, everything becomes 3D. You start learning more and digging into, and there's real emotional engagement there with the characters, and what they're going through, and you also start digging into their past. Like, it's honestly been some of the best character development that I've seen in a video game this decade. There's been a lot of failures in AAA, and AA has done usually a pretty good job, but to really kind of think about, like, to see what the characters are going through, especially toward the end, and then to think about it myself. And, my wife was that way too. So just like, the game does a good job of presenting where you could use some growth yourself. as they always have in their games, which is actually really cool. So, but yeah, this one especially, they did a really good job with this. They also progressed the story really well because you get to learn pieces as you progress and as you work through different bosses in the game. And they did do a great job, in our opinion, of tying it all together at the end. And even just giving a nod to the game, which was cool. And yeah, they've done a wonderful job. So yeah, definitely one we would recommend for folks. Things we would change. So there is some, color patterns, one for each character, so that each player knows what they can engage with in their world or environment. And Mio gets pink, of course, really easy to see, right? Kind of like this, yeah, vibrant purplish pink, or pink purplish, something like that. So yeah, it's really easy to see, really easy to pick up on and stuff. Zoe has this kind of lime green, which can blend in with certain environments. And we actually struggled, both of us, because I can see her side of the screen, of course, right? Because we're split screening. But we really struggled with being able to just see what her character could interact with sometimes. And we're playing on a 40-inch or 48-inch TV. We're playing on a pretty big TV. And we were sitting fairly close to it, so we could see our halves of the screen. But even still, it was hard sometimes to see the green. So it would be nice if it was a more vibrant green instead of a softer green. So that would be nice because, yeah, it was just hard to tell exactly what to do or what you're capable of or even where to go sometimes because of the highlighting in the game for the green character. It also made some of these parts more difficult because it would be hard to tell exactly when to push the button. Because you have to be close enough, generally speaking, to engage with some of these highlights. And again, if you can't see when the highlight shows up or when it doesn't, you're not exactly sure when to push the button to engage with the animation, so that you don't, die, of course. So yeah, that was certainly one thing that was pretty frustrating. There also was another thing in the game. Again, if you're a casual player, this level is going to be grueling. Because unless you're used to third-person or first-person shooters, this is really, really going to be challenging through like the entirety of the game. And then it's all with timing too. So there's that as well. So that was one particular level that was incredibly difficult. But again, the game does a fairly good job of pacing. They give you the side stories to engage with. They have two different main fantasies or types of genres, which is like sci-fi, and the other one is fantasy. And so they do a good job of mixing that up to try to keep players engaged and not just have the whole game be a grind fest for those casual players. So that was really nice that they did that. But again, yeah, that one level in particular, we both just kind of grinded through that, right? Because you got to have a certain performance level for the casual player in order for both of you to actually get through. So both of you have played a lot of games, both or you and your friend or whoever have played a bunch. It'll probably be fine. There probably won't be any major issue there. But if you are playing with a casual player, or you are playing, or you're both casual, that particular level toward the end of the game is going to be really quite brutal. And some parts of it, even for myself, were unfun. It was even challenging for me to a degree, because they don't really give you any prompts. They just have you try to figure it out. And I remember one session we had, I want to say it was about an hour and 20 minutes, and we didn't really get anywhere in the game. It was really challenging for both of us to know exactly where to go or what to do. So some of the puzzles also get more challenging as you get through the game. So ultimately, looking back, okay, we enjoy those challenges, but there's certain aspects we feel like were too high of a difficulty spike, especially as this game is more or less kind of created for couples or pairs or friends to enjoy, and probably got a casual player in there, and boy, that might just be a little bit of a too big of a difficulty spike. Something that we think would maybe be nice is to take the time that if there's multiple failures to actually have like some extra highlighter figured out, because we were probably stuck for about 10-15 minutes in just one particular spot where it's like we're not exactly sure where to go. But it would be nice after a time limit, let's say after 5 minutes. It's like, okay, here, or you can select a button to prompt hints or tips. That would be nice. That way, players can do it when they wish, and we can all have a more fun and better experience. Because this, Split Fiction is not meant to be a challenging, grindy, sweaty game. It's supposed to be about the story and the development of the characters, and to a degree, I feel like they kind of missed that a little bit with some of these levels. Let's see. The end game. Pretty challenging, though it wasn't the most challenging parts of the game for us, but it was really good. They did do some cool extra things there, and just, the whole experience of all of the different worlds and ways and genres and games and all of the different nods that they do through the whole thing is really, really cool. Some other things that were frustrating was input lag. So we would push a button, and then our character wouldn't do it. So we died a bunch because of that, and myself included. And then also there was when the game is moving you forward, and you're just kind of along for the ride, you still have to jump or dodge or whatever. Well, if you didn't do it perfectly and you died, you would get stuck in this death loop. And this happened multiple times for my wife and I, where once we start sliding or moving down something and we're trying to avoid and adjust and get out of the way of stuff, and if you didn't do it perfectly, you would die, and then you got to mash the Y or triangle button to get it all the way back so you can spawn. And as soon as you would spawn, almost without fail, for myself or for my wife, there would be something in the way and we would just die again. And we would get stuck in this death loop and hopefully have the other player get through it. And sometimes we could, sometimes we couldn't. But this was another part of the game where it's like, okay, this is not really a skill issue. It's that the game literally places you right in front of something, and you don't have control over your own spawn. You just spawn in a particular part of the screen, and then you get smashed into something without even being able to have the time to react or anything. So that was pretty frustrating too. So then when you have input lag and then you have these death loops that you can get stuck into the game, man, let me tell you, that was actually pretty frustrating. And this is why we're not giving it a 9 out of 10 or giving it a 10 out of 10. There are some of these game designs, while I don't think it was intentional, just make the game more frustrating and annoying than actually fun. And you can tell that that's what they're going for. The development team and the directors, they're all going toward a fun story, right? And with some level of challenge in it. And, of course, a lot of teamwork. And that's what they're known for in their games. But, boy, the input lag and the death loop situation, and then also, too, having to deal with the lime green color sometimes. There were some parts of the game that were just incredibly frustrating. And we were just like, yay, we don't have to go through that again. And sometimes, we've talked about going through some of the other HazeLight games, okay, for a second or third time, like A Way Out or like It Takes Two. But for Split Fiction, I don't think we're going to do that this time because, again, some of those experiences that we had, some of those levels and the way in which they're designed, again, they're more annoying and frustrating and angering, as my wife said. They're just not worth necessarily putting yourself through that again. So I would say that the replayability is pretty low. So if you can find it on sale or find it on, a discounted physical copy, that's cool. You probably won't be disappointed with that. But still, certainly for $50, I think it's a wonderful story. Just not a ton of replayability, but there is a lot of stuff and content there to keep you engaged. Again, for us, it was about 20 hours to do the entire thing. Some people may take 25, some people may do it in 15. Just depends on your skill level. So this is a game that had a fun, wide range of experiences throughout the story, with some frustrating areas and sometimes frustrating color palette design, and even just like in the input lag on top of that. So we'd still highly recommend the game. The game is also very stable, looks really beautiful. It's got a good frame rate. The cool thing, too, if you have a physical copy, is that there's actually 2 discs. So you have the entire game actually on disc, which is great. You got all the files. And then there's no microtransactions. There's no subscriptions. There's nothing like that. They're not trying to really push anything onto you. There's also not going to be any DLC as far as I've been able to see with this game. And so, yeah, they've done a great job. So with that, folks, you can always tune in to Gaming Garbage 22 over at YouTube. You can also use the playlist to hop around and see what's available. As there's gaming news, there's deep dives, there's initial looks, there's game reviews, there's all sorts of stuff. And then you can also follow me over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. And if I'm doing reviews like this or deep dives or news, I don't really engage with the chat. But when I'm actually playing playthroughs or when I'm playing through and just trying to capture some stuff, absolutely, I'll chat with folks. So with that, hopefully you guys are doing well. I'm going to be doing the Oblivion remaster next. We're going to have an initial look, and then I'll be doing some comparisons too between 360 and, of course, the remastered version. So with that, folks, we'll see you guys in the next one.